Paying close attention to the organizations that were started by blacks only compared to those that were integrated startups, one can notice something very obvious. All of the predominantly black organizations promoted self-help, economic empowerment, business ownership, and taking care of black families and black communities. They were not started to become agitators. Booker T. Washington's National Negro Business League and Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association actually had a principal focus on economic empowerment for Negroes. The Regional Council of Negro Leadership was actually founded by a guy named T.R.M. Howard, and this organization also had a platform of self-help, business ownership, and civil rights. The Black Panther Party, many think the Black Panther Party was all about violence, and it was actually started just to combat some of the lynchings and attacks that were being done to blacks by whites. But they actually had a focus on community empowerment. None of these organizations are around today. Yeah, of course you have that new Black Panther Party, whatever that is, whatever they want to call themselves. But it's not the same party from the 60s with Huey P. Newton and Stokely Carmichael. Self-help actually lost the battle against victimization and begging. The openly socialist and communist pro-black organizations did not last either because they were not good at hiding their motives. Had they been good at hiding their motives, many of these pro-black organizations with white leadership, figured that one out, would probably still be around. I mean, the NAACP didn't get their first black president until, 66 years after they started in 1975. All of their presidents were white starting from 1909 all the way to 1975. So you figure that one out. But the survivors knew how to hide their motives. These organizations are still around and thriving, and black people have moved further down the social, educational, and economic ladder. Somehow, they still manage to have their yearly conventions that accomplish nothing. I mean, when was the last time you ever heard of the NAACP or the National Urban League actually doing something in the community? The civil rights movement was supposedly accomplished with the signing of the bill. As Clarence Thomas has said, we have talked more about civil rights after 1964 than before. When we look at the remaining organizations, the NAACP and the National Urban League, we can point to something that might or might not have been unnoticed. Based on the founding of these other organizations, one can see that the socialist and communist parties were actively involved in the formation of daily operations. It is well documented that the Communist Party was piggybacking off of black inequality to move their agenda forward. They had planned on using the black inequality to goad them in the race riots to show the ills of capitalism and promote the communist ideology. They used the black organizations with white leadership for this end game. What was so wrong with wanting to start a business that you could pass on to your descendants? What was wrong about not wanting to beg a man for a job in his company that his kids will inherit? What was so wrong with wanting a level playing field in business? For many of the service type businesses, many blacks already had the awareness and know how to run those industries. Many blacks already knew how to run stores, hotels, catering companies, and tailoring type businesses. They knew how to own and operate banks, insurance companies, and benevolent societies which provided economic assistance to those who were in need and were also not able to secure bank loans from the white-owned banks. They knew how to build schools and educate their children. So what was wrong with this way of thinking? Think about it. What did W.E.B. Du Bois and the NAACP ever build? What did the Urban League ever build? Now contrast that with what Booker T. Washington built, what Marcus Garvey built. I mean, even the Black Panthers had created community outreach programs that actually accomplished something. It helped black people. They helped black people in what they were doing. They were just in defense for the most part, but they were doing things within the community. As Manning Johnson stated in 1958, the NAACP, and Manning Johnson's passed on now, but he wrote a book called Color, Communism, and Common Sense. But he said the NAACP has collected millions of dollars through exploitation of race issues. The bigger the race issue, the bigger the appeal, and the bigger the contributions. Yet one cannot find any report of any of this money being spent for factories and shops to provide jobs, land and home constructions, specialized training for talented youth, hospitals, convalescence homes, classes in sanitation and personal hygiene, care and upkeep of property, combating crime and juvenile delinquency, centers to aid Negro youth in preparing to meet stiff employment competition in science and industry. And according to Robert Woodson, he's the former program director of the Urban League. He said during the Nixon administration, $30 million had been awarded to the National Urban League and more than $60 million to its affiliate organizations. And an audit of the Urban League during the Gerald Ford administration revealed that the numerous programs could produce no verifiable deliverables for the funds they received. Woodson even said while he served as the program director, he realized the funds for one of his projects had been depleted and redirected. Many of the league's conferences were scheduled to coincide with dates and locations of Super Bowl games. And contracts were given to other project directors, family, and friends who had no qualifications. It may be plausible to draw a conclusion that the government has probably continued to pour millions into black organizations without verifying what has happened to those dollars. As blacks continue to complain about reparations, they have to wonder why these black organizations are never the ones calling for. The only blacks calling for reparations are not members of any of these organizations. And the ones calling for it believe that they should be the ones to determine who gets it and how they should spend it. What is different from what these other blacks are doing? Who gave these individuals the right to determine who should receive the dollars? If a person actually spends their money foolishly, it's their decision, not the overseers, the self-appointed overseers. That's like saying during slavery, your granddaddy was better than mine. So we fought for more integration because black-owned was not good enough. We got integrated into a subservient position because many blacks were accomplishing greatly before these non-producing blacks went to government. People like Madam C.J. Walker, Frank Yerby, and S.B. Fuller. All three of these people were multimillionaires before the Civil Rights Act was signed. We got a piece of paper and a lot of political appointments though. But what else do we really have to show for the fight that was waged for integration? Bob Moses, a black man who went to Atlantic City along with some other blue-collar blacks for the Democratic National Convention in 1964, had this to say. What happened in 64 symbolized the situation we're in now. That is, the National Democratic Party and the political leadership at that time said, okay, there's room for these kind of people, professional people within our group who actually become part and actually did become part of the Democratic Party. But on the other hand, they said, there isn't room for these people, the grassroots people, the sharecroppers, the common workers, the day laborers. There's room for them as recipients of these poverty programs and these other programs we'll put in place for them, but there isn't room for them as participants in power sharing. Why did we not take the words of Frederick Douglass to heart? When asked, what shall we do with the Negro? This was Douglas' response. I have had but one answer from the beginning. Do nothing with us. Your doing with us has already caused us the mischief that we're in. Do nothing with us. If the apples will not remain on the tree of their own strength, if they're worm eaten at the core, if they are early, ripe, and disposed to fall, let them fall. I'm not tying or fastening them on a tree in any way, except by nature's plan. And if they will not stay there, let them fall. And if the Negro cannot stand on his own legs, let him fall also. All I ask is give him a chance to stand on his own legs. Let him alone. This is what Washington was promoting. This is what Garvey was promoting. This is what the Black Panther Party was promoting. This is what Malcolm X was promoting. This is what black multimillionaire S.B. Fuller was promoting. Somewhere along the way, the other self-appointed black leaders said, forget that mentality. People like Bayard Rustin, and yes, the well-loved Martin Luther King, as well as Roy Wilkins. They said, please come in and bother us, Mr. White Man. You were our daddy in slavery, so please be our daddy again. We do not feel like we are qualified enough to compete. We do not feel like our schools and teachers are just as good or better than yours. We do not feel like we can build business like you have. Please, Mr. White Man, tell me I am as good as you, even though I hated you and everything you stood for because you enslaved my ancestors. Please let me be just like you. Please let me assimilate into your society so I can feel that I am somebody. I am somebody. And look at what that mentality has gotten us as a people. Y'all see a problem with that? The very people that we say we hate are the very people we keep trying to imitate. We keep talking about everybody thinks white is right, but we as black people always having these dress up all white affairs. You know, but this is what Karl Marx had to say. The more the ruling class is able to assimilate the most prominent men of the ruled class, the more solid and dangerous is its rule. You know, as many members of the non-black majority were working to subvert and destroy black progress, many blacks were giddy that they were being considered as part of the ruling class. They were taking instructions from these non-blacks on how to handle other blacks. Even at the peak of its heyday, the civil rights struggle was being influenced by Bayard Rustin, who was homosexual and only had white male lovers that were in powerful positions and were afraid of the black power struggle. These men wanted a safe, non-threatening approach to civil rights and were influenced by black men who were considered to be angry. There's nothing wrong with existing with other cultures. I'm not anti-other cultures. Let's make that abundantly clear. I am for empowering mine, though. Blacks are the only ones who strive to make their platform look like everyone else's. No other culture is trying to mock blacks. They have their companies and blacks willingly support them. But it does not stop their culture from being who they are. In the Houston area and around the country, there are neighborhoods that are primarily Jewish, Chinese, and Hispanic. These groups of people are as much as a part of society while at the same time maintaining their own economics and identity. For some strange reason, we still have the mindset if we create our own, it will look like segregation. Nothing could be further from the truth. Blacks can be autonomous without being segregated. When it's all said and done, blacks are the only race that missed the boat when it comes to leaving income-producing assets to its offspring. Subscribe to the channel below and make sure to get updates when the book is coming out, Culture Shockwave in Black and Not Just White.